Hello again, Year 4. Welcome to Maths Lesson 3. Today we're looking at how to multiply and divide by 10 and 100. So we looked at multiplying and dividing by 10 yesterday. Let's just have a little recap. Now, I recommend you get your place value grid that you made yesterday out and your digit cards. They're going to be really useful today. If you haven't made any yet, I would really recommend it. They're very useful. To recap what we did yesterday, let's have a look at this one. 253 times 10. So I've put 253 in my place value grid. Can you remember what we have to do to multiply by 10? Yeah, that's right. All we have to do is move everything up a column. So we take our digits and we move them all along. And then there's a gap left here, but there's nothing in there. So what we can do is just place a 0. So 253 multiplied by 10 is 2,530. We also looked at dividing by 10. So when we multiply by 10, everything moves up because it's getting bigger. But if we're dividing by 10, everything's getting smaller, so we send it back the other way. So we're starting with 3,740 here. So to divide by 10, we just have to move all of our digits together that way. So they're getting smaller. And then you'll find that our 0 has fallen off the end. So we can just get rid of that. So now we have 374. So 3,740 divided by 10 is 374. Let's try looking at it in a slightly different way. These are called function machines or function robots. And what they do is this. They take in a number here, they suck it up like a Hoover, they take it in here, they mix it up in the middle and multiply it by 10, and then they spit out the answer at the end. So this function robot here has taken in the number 64 and multiplied it by 10. What I want you to do is work out what comes out at the end. So what is the output? And the same for this one here. We've got 531. It goes into the machine, it multiplies it by 10. And what do you think comes out the other side? Now this third one here is slightly trickier because I haven't told you what the robot has sucked in at this side. What I've told you instead is what the output is. So the robot took in a number, multiplied it by 10, and it became 8,250. Pause the video now and have a go at all three robots. Right, let's have a look at the answers. So the first two, all you had to do was multiply by 10. So you can use your place value grid if you need to. 64 multiplied by 10 turns into 640. 531 multiplied by 10, the output is 5,310. Now let's look at that third one that was a little bit trickier. So we know that the output that came out at the end was 8,250. I've put that into a place value grid so we can see it. So they multiplied it by 10 to make it that number. So they moved it this way. They moved it up, they made it bigger. So what we need to do to work out how they started is move it back. So we need to move it back to where it was. So we shift our number this way and we find that our original number, we get rid of the 0 that fell off, our original number that went into the machine was 825. And we can double check our answer by doing it the other way again. So testing it. So if we think 825 was here, let's multiply it by 10 and see if it makes the right answer. So 3 of our digits all go across. It makes a gap where the 0 goes. Does that make the right answer? 8,250. Yeah, well done. Now, yesterday we talked about the rule for multiplying by 10. So my big reminder to you was that to multiply by 10, everything moves one place because 10, the number, has 1 0 in it. So what do you think we have to do to multiply by 100? That's right, all we have to do is move everything across 2 places because the number 100 has 2 zeros in it. So that's the easy way to remember. We multiply by 10, it moves 1 place. We multiply by 100, it moves 2 places. I'll prove it. So if we start with a simple number, we'll start with the number 6. So we know 6 times 100. 6 lots of 100. If you've got 600s, you've got 600. But let's prove our rule. So I said that you needed to move any digits up 2 places. So let's try it. We take our 6 from the ones, we move it up 1, 2 places, and we've got these 2 gaps left afterwards with nothing in them. So we put in the zeros, and there we go, 600. See, I told you. Let's try another one. 41 times 100. So same thing again. We take our digits and we're going to move them up 2 places. Remember, we're multiplying by 100. It's got 2 zeros. So we go 1, 2 places, which leaves us with 2 gaps for zeros. So we can put our zeros in. So 41 times 100 is 4,100. But what about if your number already has a 0 in it? Doesn't that make it trickier? Well, actually, no, not at all. It's all exactly the same. So even though this number already ends in a 0, we do exactly the same thing as we did before. So we have 70, we're going to multiply it by 100. So we move both digits up 2 places, 1, 2, and we have 2 places left for zeros. So 70 times 100 is 7,000. Now you might think that you've gone wrong because you've ended up with a number that has 3 zeros at the end, but actually it already had the 1 0 to start with, so that's fine. Now 389, these numbers are getting bigger, but the rule is still the same. Let's have a go. 389, we're going to multiply it by 100, so we need to move it 2 places. So we go 1, 2 places, and then we've got 2 gaps where we need to put our zeros. There we go. So 389 multiplied by 100 is 38,900. And this works for absolutely any whole number that you try. What about a really big one though? Do you know what to do with this one? This is a massive number. It's 32,846,708. It's such a big number that I have to put commas in there to help me know how to say it out loud. So 32,846,708. But how do I multiply that by 100? Yeah, the rule's the same again. We just move everything over. We make it all bigger by 2 places. 1, 2. And now we've ended up with our column here that starts with B. Bet you know what that is. That's billions. Let's put our 2 zeros in. And we have to put an extra comma in. We've got so many numbers now. We need 3 commas to help me say it. So our new number, having multiplied 32,846,708 by 100, is now, deep breath, 3,284,670,800. But it's easy because you do the same thing. You move everything 2 places, you put the zeros in the gaps. That's it. You can deal with any number now. So what if we want to divide by 100? Well, like we had yesterday, we talked about how dividing is just the opposite of multiplying. So it's the same thing again here. If we wanted to multiply, we would move everything up because we want to make it bigger. But we want to divide by 100 now. And if we're splitting things up, we're making them smaller. So we need to take this number here. We've got 81,500 and we're going to divide it by 100. So we're going to move it 2 places, but instead of moving it up, we're going to move it back. So 1, 2 places. And then if you look, our zeros have fallen off the end. We can get rid of those. And our answer we're left with is 815. So dividing by 100 is just as easy as multiplying. You just need to remember which way you need to move the numbers. Let's try this one just to make sure. We've got 46,100 and we're dividing it by 100. So we know which way it needs to go. We're dividing so it gets smaller. Let's have a look. We know we're dividing by 100. So we're moving it 2 places because it's got 2 zeros. 1, 2. We can get rid of our zeros because they fell off the end. And there we go. 46,100 divided by 100 is 461. Have a look at these calculations here. None of them are correct, but they've made very common mistakes that can help to teach us what we need to do. Pause the video and see if you can work out where they went wrong. Right, let's discuss it. So 17 times 10 was the first one, and they made it 107. Now, as you might have spotted, the mistake they've made here is that they didn't keep their 1 and their 7 together when they moved them. They moved one of them, but not the other, and then they put the 0 in the middle. So instead of making it 170, they only moved the 1 and then put the 0 there, so they made it 107. It's a very common mistake. This one here in the middle, they had 24 times 100 and they made it 240. Again, this is a very common mistake. What they've done is they've multiplied it by 10 instead of 100. So they haven't moved the digits enough places. They've only moved it 1 place, so they've made it 240. It's really important that when you're looking at these calculations, that you notice what you're multiplying by and notice how many places you need to move everything. This one at the bottom, again, it's a similar thing. They were multiplying 830 by 100, but they've only ended up with 8,300. So they've only actually moved it 1 place, and they've put the 0 in the ones. I think what they've possibly done is become a bit confused by the fact that this number that they started with already had a 0 in it. Don't get confused by zeros, you just move them up the same as anything else. Have a look at this one next. We've got 4 images here that all represent a calculation. 3 of them show you multiplying by 100, but 1 of them doesn't. Can you spot which one it is? Pause the video and have a look. Right, let's have a look at the answers. It's this one, this part-whole diagram here. So if we look back at the others, we turn 1 penny or 3 pennies into 3 pounds. We've got place value counters, ones turning into hundreds, and we've got deans, ones into hundreds. This one is the odd one out. And although you've got 103 and it's made it 300, actually part-whole diagrams only show you addition. They don't show you multiplications. Now you might be more familiar with this diagram this way round. We quite often look at them like this. I always think they look a bit like an octopus. What this should show us is addition. So we've got 100 in one circle, we've got 3 in the other circle. So actually the one that joins them should say 103, not 300, because we use it for addition. Well done if you spotted that. Today's task that we'd like you to do is on My Maths again, and it's multiplying and dividing by 10 and 100. When you go into the activity, it will have two sets of questions for you. The first ones, which you can see on this side, are all multiplying by 10 or 100. Remember to look carefully and make sure you're multiplying by the right one. Use your place value grid and your paper digit cards if you need to. The second question you'll come to is all about dividing. So you've got dividing by 10 and dividing by 100. Remember to write in your answers for each question and then press mark it before you move on. When you press mark it on both of them, then it will send your scores automatically to us. And remember, you can do it as many different times as you want to. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you tomorrow.